Okay, we'll now move on to discussion of resolutions. We'll first discuss Resolution 1155-A, an amended resolution calling upon the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign legislation amending the New York State education law to afford houses of worship equal access to school property, amended and adopted by the Committee on Education.
I'm sorry, Mr. Majority Leader. Could we get quiet for the discussions of resolutions? Thank you.
Yeah, quiet in chambers, please. We have Councilmember Cabrera for that reso.
Thank you so much. First, I first want to give a special thanks to all the 36 council members that have signed on to this bill, and also to the chair of the Education Committee, Councilmember Jackson, and for the Speaker for allowing for this resolution to come to the floor. I just wanted to accentuate the fact that this resolution will call upon the State of New York Assembly to allow houses of worship to be able to rent from public school, which in turn will give us some revenue. While these schools are not being used by students, they'll be used by the community, and namely those who are of religious persuasion. The polls have been clear in every single poll, whether nationwide or locally. We have seen that our constituents are in favor of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Majority Leader. My colleagues, I rise in support of Resolution 1155A. As you know, this resolution was passed out of the Education Committee yesterday by a vote of 14 in favor and 5 against. And I ask for you to support this resolution mainly because with respect to religious institutions using our school, they pay a fee, the same fee that every organization that wants to use the school. There's no discounts. It's the same fee. And if they use the auditorium, they pay a certain fee. If they need a restroom, a men's room or a women's room or another classroom, they pay a fee for each room that they use. And it's not like school is in session where you're having a religious institution renting the space and children are being exposed to religion in school. I mean, what's the time frame on the resolution?
1 minute.
Okay. I just ask to be supportive of 1155A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Next, we move on to Councilmember Oliver Coppell, followed by Councilmember Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. This is a very important resolution in the sense that it suggests that we do something, or that the state authorizes something that I think is opposed to one of the very principles that underlies this great country, and that is the freedom of religion and also the non-establishment of any religion. We also have, that's in the, of course, in the federal Constitution through the First Amendment. We also have in our state Constitution something called the Blaine Amendment, which prohibits the spending of any public money in support of any religious institution. In my opinion, allowing worship services in our schools violates both the Establishment Clause and the Blaine Amendment. Yes, it's true they may pay a fee, but they certainly don't pay the full cost of the school. But that's not the principal issue, frankly. The principal issue is whether we should have in our schools religious services, even though it's not during school time. That should not be part of the public discourse, and therefore this resolution should be defeated.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Brewer.
Thank you very much. I have great respect for Councilmember Cabrera, but I'm opposed to this particular resolution for a couple of reasons. I want to echo what Councilmember Oliver Coppell stated, but in addition, in my district, in the past, it was the Sundays that the schools are available, and that's when the religious services took place. In my district, a lot of faiths also take place on Saturday, a lot of services. I feel strongly, I want to be really specific. In some cases, the church left a lot of material. I attended the hearing, the first hearing on this topic, and we were told nobody ever leaves material. Not true. In 2 of my schools, there was a ton of material left, understandably, because they wanted to make it almost like a permanent place where they could have services. Number 2, I feel strongly that the schools need to be more of a place for the community. I believe strongly in community schools, something that the Speaker has talked about, where we want the schools used by local community organizations on a regular basis. For many reasons, I do not support this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now move on. Councilmember Lander, followed by Councilmember Fiddler.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. I support Resolution 1155A. I believe it's acceptable when the Bangladeshi Muslims in my community hold the Bengali New Year ceremony and say a prayer, or full disclosure, when my daughter's Hebrew school class meets in a public school and sometimes says a prayer as well. But I do believe that just as when the Catholic Church rents space to our public schools, they require that we follow their values and refrain from sex education, so too when the city rents space to outside institutions, whether they're religious organizations, civic, scouting organizations, or others, that those organizations should follow our municipal values, namely, in this case, the New York City human rights law. And I've therefore organized a letter separate from this resolution, together with Councilmember Drum, who opposes 1155A, asking the Chancellor to promulgate a new policy which would require that all organizations, religious, civic, cultural, scouting, or otherwise, that rent space in our public schools, proactively and affirmatively agree to follow the New York City human rights law for programs that take place in our public schools, and I invite others who would like to join us in signing that letter to let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Councilmember Fiddler, followed by Councilmember Gentili.
With all due respect to the former Attorney General, New York City is the only place that reads the case law the way he appears to be. I don't believe we're establishing a religion any more than we established religion at the beginning of this meeting today by having a prayer. I don't think we're establishing religion as long as we allow both any religion and any anti-religious group to rent space on an equal footing. We're not subsidizing religion because they're paying us, not the other way around, and they're paying the same price as everybody else. And the notion that I've heard at committee that we're encouraging students to believe that the schools are supporting a religion because it's a neighborhood school. Well, for those of you who are following the playbook, the Bloomberg administration destroyed the concept of neighborhood schools a long, long time ago, so I don't really think we need to worry about kids going past their neighborhood school on Saturday or Sunday. I just think this is a matter of fairness and equal treatment, that religious groups shouldn't be treated less than everybody else, and I am for this resolution.
Thank you very much. We now move on to Councilmember Gentili, followed by Councilmember Gennaro.
Thank you. I agree with my colleague Lou Fiddler that we're really not violating an establishment clause of the First Amendment here. Certainly, these groups pay for the space that they use in the schools, and they are not proselytizing outside the schools. Anybody who is there on the weekend in those spaces are there without any pressure from the churches. They're there because they want to go to that service. So there's no aspect by which the government or the state is establishing a religion. It is clearly just renting space for those services, just as any other group would rent space. So I believe the argument about violating the Constitution is specious, and therefore I stand in support of 1155.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Wills.
I stand in support of Resolution 1155, and I think that I just wanted to say that, yes, we do have things that are going on in the schools on the weekends, but districts like mine all over the city that do not have anything going on in the schools, whether they're Saturday academies or anything else that we have stopped by not applying the proper funding to. These churches or houses of worship, no matter what faith it is, fill the gap. And I think that, through respectfully saying so, that anyone who would deny access into these buildings but still go to all of the other houses of worship for anything else that you would want to do, I think is a contradiction, is hypocritical. I think that these houses of worship need to start somewhere, and they need the resources to be able to do that. There's nothing more community than a house of worship that does what we have expected them to do by cutting the funding and asking them to do it anyway. I stand in full support of Councilmember Cabrera from the beginning in Resolution 1155, and I urge all the rest of our colleagues to pass it.
Let's call a voice vote on Resolution 1155-A. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
I couldn't determine.
If you're voting no, please go see the clerk so it can be noted on the register, or the record, so to speak.
Yeah, just as to double what the speaker just said, only 9 members came up to vote no, so if you are voting no, make sure you come up to the front to verify that.